Hi everybody, a warm welcome to the garage. I'm Jeremy Cordeaux. Peter Clayton's behind the camera. It's a chilly day, a chilly spring day. Some weak sunshine filtering through the trees. But it's a beautiful time of the year. I hope you're having a good time wherever you are, wherever you're going. Where do I start? Just a little bit of, I think I talked to you about those e-scooters. I think they're a bloody nuisance and an eyesore, and they're a danger because they do tend to blow up, catch fire. Yesterday was the last day that the people in Victoria will see them. They were banned from yesterday. Went around on trucks and picked them all up and took them all away. Interesting that the progressive People's Republic of Victoria were the first to introduce these e-scooters and now become the first to get rid of them. I hope other states, including South Australia, will follow suit. I still don't know what the business model is. I can't imagine how they make money out of it. But anyway, welcome to our Facebook posting and our podcast. Thanks to Andy Martin, who takes the audio from our podcast or our posting and puts it out everywhere. We have one posting every Tuesday and Wednesday. Thank you very much for your comments, by the way. What I'll try to do is to say always exactly what I think. I obviously don't expect everyone to agree with what I say. I can only say what I think and feel. As you know, I've got no fear of being sacked. Pete, we can't do it. No,
I can't sack you.
No, you can't sack me. So straight from the heart, ladies and gentlemen, good or bad, right or wrong. And you can always call me on Friday if you want to rip my ears off. My telephone number around the dining room table, jeremycordeaux.com, 0491 65 68 60. Now, we've only got one line coming in. We haven't put in a switchboard yet, but I hope to do that so we can sort of take calls and stack them and get them on air in order. But it's a little bit down the track. But we are well and truly in touch on that number. Now, that number is good for sending a text as well, if you'd rather do that. At the time of recording today's Court of Public Opinion, the RBA had not released the interest rate decision. But I say here, a safe bet. Safe bet is that they'll leave the interest rates on hold. But we'll see. As you might know, the Greens, don't you love the Greens? The Greens have dug their heels in and will not support Labor's legislation to reshape the RBA. I am not convinced that I understand why it needs reshaping. But the Greens say they won't back the legislation unless the RBA lowers the interest rates. Ha! That'll go down as a very popular idea with the unthinking, because really, forgive me my voice, I've just had a bit of a cold. This will give you some idea how stupid and dangerous these people are. The Reserve Bank, ladies and gentlemen, like any central bank, lifts and lowers interest rates as a monetary instrument, not a political weapon. My God, I can't believe how stupid the Greens are. Anyway, we'll see where it goes. A survey by the Institute of Public Affairs of 18 to 24-year-olds has shown that if there was a war, only 27% would volunteer to serve their country. 27%. And probably even more shocking, 48% say they would leave the country to avoid being called up. What have we bred? Pete, what do you think?
It's terrible. Terrible.
It is terrible.
Well, you can shut the border and not let them leave, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, they're not going to be good fighting people if they don't want to fight. But I can tell you this, I don't believe it is their fault. The schools tell the kids every day that they should be ashamed of their country. They have torn every bit of pride out of the young. We are told that we should apologize for our past. Just how we get rid of these so-called educators, teachers, they're advocates and activists, they're not teachers. I don't know how we get rid of them. But root and branch, we have to reshape our school system. We have to install pride, salute the flag, remember our heroes, respect our past. Now, I hope to have Professor David Flint on the show on Friday. I know Ian Plimer will have thoughts on this subject, as you may well have yourself. 0491 65 68 60. Every week, sometimes every day, the government announces that it is spending more money. Money for this, money for that. Look, you can't do it. I can't do it. They have to stop it. As Abraham Lincoln so wisely said of government, money is best left in the hands of the people who earned it. But that's not how this crowd thinks, obviously. Unemployment steady at 4.2. I fully expected it to jump up, but unemployment steady at 4.2%, being propped up by immigration, which of course exacerbates the housing shortage. Government should learn the law of unintended consequences. It's out there, folks. Here's something else that's interesting too. I saw asylum seekers are at a 6-year high. The arrivals, I mean, which the media seems to be ignoring or oblivious of. I often think that the commentators of today would be so much better if they had the perspective that only the past can give. Which brings me back to housing. A couple of things we never hear about today. The second mortgage. You know, you go out and get a mortgage. Nobody ever talks about getting a second mortgage these days. We hear a lot about the bank of mum and dad. But most people couldn't have bought a house without a second mortgage in my day. And even sometimes, dare I say it, a third mortgage. Usually you'd go to a bank for your first mortgage, then you'd go to a building society or a credit union. And the other thing you never hear anyone talking about is the temporary dwelling. The temporary dwelling. This was a common practice in Sydney. This is how most people, well, I won't say most people, but certainly a lot of people got into the market. You saved like mad, you bought a block of land in an outer, cheaper suburb, and you placed a dwelling on it. Not a house. No, couldn't afford a house. This was allowed by both the state and local governments. You had to start, I think the rule was you had to start to build a proper house within 10 years. But you could put a caravan, you could put a shack. Sometimes people would put little more than a lean-to on the land. Services would be connected, yes, water, gas, electricity, even the phone. True. Probably a party line. I can see you rolling your eyes. Pete, do you know what a party line is?
No.
The party line, yes. It was back when having a telephone was a luxury. You shared the phone line with your neighbours up and down the street. People could listen into everybody's conversation. Join in fact. So you went to the telephone to make a call and you picked it up. Oh, and you could hear Mrs. Jones talking to her husband or something. And decency, common decency would say, you put the phone down. I wonder how many times they put the phone down. The good old party line. You see, this was the world of struggle that the kids of today just would not have a bar of. But you did anything to get that roof over your head. All part of the business of getting your first house. A long journey, ladies and gentlemen. Today the kids want it all, and they want it now, along with a smashed avocado and an overseas holiday here and there. Widescreen television? Of course. Mobile phones, computers, email, the works. And there's another thing. My mother and father's generation, and maybe your mother and father's generation, would buy a house, usually with difficulty and struggle, and would stay in it for their entire lives. There wasn't the constant churning that came along with my generation. No sooner had we bought a house, we were looking for a better one. Bigger, a better suburb, closer to town. And the same thing went for jobs. There was a time when people would start their working life and stay with that company till they retired or died. These days we are, what's the expression? Upwardly mobile, I think. Upwardly mobile. Now don't get me wrong, I am very ambitious and I admire that trait in other people. But there is a consequence for wanting more, buying more. With a community constantly wanting more and better comes the upward spiral of what everything costs. Of course, what I'm describing is the essence of capitalism. Ambition, growth, achievement, striving, never saying, that's enough. I can relax. I don't know. I can't find the off button myself. Not that I've looked very hard for it. But, you know, you pays your penny and you takes your pick. Famous old saying. Another big out-of-control bushfire on the weekend, this time on Sydney's northern beaches, the result of yet another hazard reduction burn, which is just another way of saying an officially lit bushfire. Now, this is not an isolated case. It happens over and over and over again. Hazard reduction. Sounds great, doesn't it? Hazard reduction. But it smacks of, we had to destroy the village to save it. Gee, if the authorities light a fire, even with the best of intentions, and it gets out of control, call it backburning, call it hazard reduction, it gets out of control, destroys property, endangers life, kills wildlife, damage that could cost millions, and the community gets a whoops, sorry about that. I would want someone to take responsibility. And I'm not talking about the firefighters, the brave young men and women who go out there and risk their lives. I'm talking about the person who made the decision, gave the okay, the order. What do you think? Tell me Friday. 0491 65 68 60. If there is any evidence that these controlled burns actually work, Any evidence that it benefits, or the benefits outweigh the risk? I'd like to know. 0491 65 68 60 as we head into another bushfire season, which with the build-up of material and fuel promises to be a particularly risky one. Our sponsors are, as I've said to you before, Jim Elder, Fine Art, Melbourne Street, North Adelaide. Jim and Helen are very happy to assess, appraise any painting that you have, and indeed put it on the market for you and get the best price for you. Jim Elder Fine Art, they're wonderful. And the Rising Sun Inn, Bridge Street, Kensington, very old atmospheric pub, judged to be the best in South Australia, by the way. Grant is the proprietor. For a remarkable dining experience, call him, make a booking. I'll give you the number in a second. Lunch or dinner. Also a great venue for a function, a wedding reception, a product launch, open fires, lots of character, old world charm. You like it, don't you, Pete?
Oh, yes, beautiful.
And I think we're going to go and talk to Grant because every Sunday, I think it's the last Sunday in the month, they have live entertainment. I mean, just like you came down to Decker's and used to sit on the stool and
Yes.
sing folk songs, I think that could go down wonderfully well there.
Well, we can give it a try.
Yeah, indeed. The number 8333 0721. Phone Grant on 8333 0721. Great menu, extensive wine list. The Rising Sun Inn, Bridge Street, Kensington, here in Adelaide. The ABC reports that nuclear power would add $600 a year to every power bill in Australia. I wonder how impartial that story was. Would they run a story that said every Australian household would save $600 a year if we introduced nuclear into the mix? I think not. Why didn't they run a story 3 years ago telling us that Labor's alternative policy, that's alternatives, electricity, sun and wind, would add $1,000 a year to every household? Why didn't they do that, I wonder? I question what they say. But that's my right and your right. As is your right to question what I'm saying here. This warning or analysis of the cost of nuclear power comes from the Institute for Energy Economics. Who are they? Well, what do they do? I think their mission statement is to accelerate the transition to a diverse, read alternatives, a diverse, sustainable energy economy. I think I've got that right. Now, I urge you to investigate these sort of statements for yourself. Google the Institute for Energy Economics and who funds them. My reading is that they are an activist group who in Australia is pro-alternatives and anti-nuclear, pro-Labor, anti-conservative. I mean, I stand corrected if I'm wrong. They are also very keen on the subject of climate change, all that nonsense. But my question is, who is behind the organisation? Who is behind? And why is the ABC so eager to quote such an organisation as an independent authority? Make up your own mind. I think the ABC is a disgrace. It's a mouthpiece for left-wing crap. And if I can investigate the Institute for Energy Economics in 2 minutes, why can't they? I don't know. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with the Institute for Economic Energy, whatever. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. They are totally entitled to their opinion. I'm suggesting that the ABC balance it, and be transparent. Have I gone on too far? Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Okay, I'm sorry. Forgive me! When I get wound up, I get going. Sorry about the cold, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just a bit croaky today. Happy birthday if you're having a birthday. It is the 24th, September the 24th, 1889. Howard Florey, later to become Lord Florey, Australian pathologist and pharmacologist who purified penicillin, won the Nobel Prize in 1945. Born in Adelaide, South Australia, on this day in 1898 and died in 1968. 1969, the first Elvis convention. Golly. 2,500 fans attended. It was in Cincinnati. Henri Giffard, French engineer, he makes the first engine-powered dirigible airship flight with steam power. Wow. On this day in 1852. And on this day in 1929, James Doolittle, who later became General James Doolittle of the Army Air Force, guides a consolidated NY-2 biplane over Mitchell Air Force Base in New York in the first flight to use only instrument guidance to take off, to set a course, and to land. And indeed, flying blind. He was the guy who took the Mitchell bombers off aircraft carriers and was the first after Pearl Harbor to go and bomb the Japs. Although it's not politically correct to call them Japs anymore. Jim Henson, I talked to him a few times. Lovely man, American puppeteer, artist, screenwriter and filmmaker. Best known as the creator of The Muppets, Sesame Street, The Muppet Show, born this day in 1936. He died in 1990. Sir John Kerr, Australian politician and Governor-General who dismissed the Whitlam government. Born Sydney, New South Wales. On this day in 1914, he died in 1991. Pretty much a broken man. The Labour Party hounded him to the grave. He was a Labour Party man all his life. He, as a barrister, before he became the Lieutenant Governor of New South Wales, that was before he became the Governor-General of Australia, appointed by a Labour government. I guess they thought he was in their pocket. He was his own man. But he'd been a left-wing person most of his professional life. But even he couldn't cop the Whitlam Labour government. What was the line, Pete? Well, may we say, God save the Queen, because nothing will save the Governor-General.
Very well done. Yes, I remember it.
I remember it too. 2005 on this day, American That 70s Show actor Ashton Kutcher, 27, weds the American actress Demi Moore, 42, Beverly Hills, divorced in 2013, but married on this day in 2005. The wonderful Dr. Seuss, American children's author, The Cat in the Hat, Green Eggs and Ham, dies of cancer at the age of 87, on this day in 1991. Tony Newley, talked to him too. Tony Newley, British actor and songwriter, Dr. Dolittle, Goldfinger, Willy Wonka, born in London on this day in 1931. He died in 1999. I loved that thing that he did called What Kind of Fool Am I? What kind of fool am I who never fell in love? Do you know the one, Pete?
No, I don't.
What kind of fool am I? And I think Shirley Bassey did a version of it as well. The Big Bang Theory, created by Chuck Lorre and Bill Prady, debuted on CBS on this day in 2007. Arthur Guinness, Irish brewer and founder of the Guinness Brewery, born in County Kildare in Ireland on this day in 1725. He died, quite happily, on this day in 1803. Christopher Columbus embarks on his second exploration of the New World, setting sail with a fleet of 17 ships. 1493. I wonder what the hell he'd make of the New World if he came back today and had another look. He'd probably sail right on past. It ain't worth discovering. Anyway, 1952, American fast food restaurant chain KFC, well, it was recently KFC, Kentucky Fried Chicken, opens. And the first franchise was in Salt Lake City in Utah. And do you know that Colonel Sanders, he was never a colonel, by the way, but Colonel Sanders did not fry a chicken until I think he was 70 years old. So a bit late to start a whole cooking empire, but there you go. Nothing ventured. Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you for viewing the Court of Public Opinion. Peter Clayton and I will be back tomorrow. I'm Jeremy Cordeaux. From the garage and the heart, believe in yourself, and thank you for viewing the Court of Public Opinion.